This is All About Home Construction, and here's your hosts, Terry Cannell-Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right. Good morning. Well, one of us, Randy's recovering. He's got the bionic knee thing going on, and we appreciate him and hope he's going well with that. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to us All About Home Construction, and don't forget about the podcast. If you're listening to us, you can check this out and go back and listen to it. But being all about home construction, we want to keep things live. We want to keep them informative, and so we thought, hey, let's continue a show. Randy couldn't be here, unfortunately, and that's okay because we got a guest this morning, and a guest that's very familiar with our show. She's been on many times, and we always appreciate that, and that's Congresswoman Virginia Foxx. Good morning. Good morning, Congresswoman. How are you?
Good morning. I'm okay. I think my phone is turned out.
Uh-oh. So,
Here we go.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on, and we really want to talk about a couple different things today, and they're both related to construction. Believe it or not, they're very much in construction in the sense of work, and lots of people in the construction industry need more workers, more skilled workers at that. And you've been pretty busy with some bipartisan bills up in D.C. for the last couple weeks, really.
Well, let's say the last 2 or 3 years.
That's fair.
I'll tell you, Terry, it's hard for people to understand how long it takes sometimes to get a bill put together and passed. I get letters every day from people saying, introduce this bill and pass it. I get a lot like that. People think that you just write a bill, very simple bill, and then you just pass it. But that's not the way it happens. The way it happens is that you come up with a concept, and we call it sometimes shop it around, meaning you talk to a lot of people and say, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about that idea? And then you work, that's inside. You talk to members of Congress. Then you talk to people outside and say, what do you think about this? Are you comfortable with this? Because when you have a bill, it's amazing how many people on the outside have an interest in it. Sure. And sometimes their interests are not the same as yours. And sometimes they're more powerful than you are because they've got more people on their side than your side. So it takes a long time. But I'm very pleased that we were timely in a way with these two pieces of legislation that we've been working on, as I said, for 3 or 4 years. Actually, on the reauthorization of WIOA, we've been working on it for since 2014.
Wow.
Well, actually, since 2019, because when we pass a major piece of legislation, usually it is authorized for 5 years.
Right.
And so that means the elements of the bill are supposed to be in effect for 5 years, and then you do another one because things happen in 5 years' time. The world changes, and it's changing very rapidly. So that's just a little bit of background. But the world right now is telling us that we need more skilled workers, that it is critical that we have more skilled workers. And you and Randy talk about construction all the time, and it's true in the construction industry. I've forgotten how many hundreds of thousands of jobs there are that are vacant in the construction industry. But there's truck driving. You look around town, everywhere you go, there's signs up saying help wanted.
Well, I actually was looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they've got this nice little graph, a fancy little graph. that's talking about the unemployment in terms the jobs versus the people applying for those jobs,
right.
Who's available. And when you look at that and you see this downtrend really from 2009-ish all the way down, and 2019 was dropping down. Of course, COVID spikes it, but in less than a year, it's already back down to where it started out. And that's less than one person per job. And, when you look at the low back in April, half of a person for every job. There's in other words, there's 2 jobs for every one unemployed person out there. And
that's about correct. I was going to say 6 million people unemployed and 10 million jobs available, something like that.
Yeah.
So you're right. There are 2 jobs for every unemployed person. And so we know that. And fortunately, again, it isn't just one side of the aisle that's hearing this. It's both sides of the aisle. And that's when you can get bipartisan legislation done.
Well, and that's the thing. This is an issue that politics doesn't. It's not a political issue, and everyone on, like you said, on both sides feel this because we have business owners and we have jobs on that people affiliate with both party affiliations. So this isn't a party thing, and that's what I like about it is the fact that you guys were able to come together and really push that through, and especially this bipartisan Workforce Pell Act. Here in a little bit we'll take a break, and I definitely want to dive into those a little deeper. But there is, from what I've been reading, there's quite a bit of bipartisanship back and forth going in and going in this together, so to speak.
Well, to be real blunt about it, you need to be bipartisan on any piece of legislation that passes. And we try to be bipartisan. The media portrays us as being real far apart, and philosophically we are. Republicans want to do things a certain way. Democrats want to do another way. It's usually basically spending money. Mm-hmm. We have a $33 trillion debt. That's really understated. Our debt is like $133 trillion when you take into consideration Social Security and Medicare and those things which we have promised people from the day they go to work. Our debt is really much higher than we talk about. So Republicans, for the most part, do not want to spend more money. We want to live within our means. The Democrats generally disregard the debt and say, oh, well, what will solve this problem is more money. So that's usually what it boils down to. We can agree on the problem. The solution to the problem is the real rub, where the real rub comes in.
Sure. And
even on these bills that we passed, we have a difference of opinion on, quote, how to pay for them, end quote.
Right.
Because paying for something means you've got to come up with the money somewhere in the federal budget to pay for it. And this is taxpayer money. I always want to make sure people understand. I'm keenly aware that the only money that the state people have, local people have, state people have, federal people have, is the money taken from the taxpayers to run the government. So this is hard-working taxpayer dollars, and I want people to know that I understand that. I consider myself a hard-working taxpayer. You're a hard-working taxpayer. You work, and you pay a portion of your money that you earn to the federal government, and then we in the federal government take that money and spend it for you. Now, my attitude is you know how to spend your money better than I know how to spend your money. You know what your priorities are. But we have things we need to do. We need to pave roads. We need good, safe drinking water and those kinds of things. But we have to be very careful how we spend your money.
Sure. Well, it's being responsible, and I think sometimes we forget about that. And then when it comes to state and federal governments, but it's what we do in our own house, our own household. It's so many times, so many people like create budgets, and we live, we budget for this, we budget for that, whether that's eating out, whether that's paying electricity, there's all of these things that go into it. And when you jump into the state and the federal government side, it's still those same types of things. It's just on a different scale.
That's right. Exactly. None of us ever have enough money, or very few of us. There are people in the world who do have enough money to do what they want, but most of us don't have enough money, and that's true of the federal government. And the federal government takes in right now about, I think, $2.5 trillion in taxes and fees. But we're spending $4 trillion a year. I don't have the exact amount, but you can see we're spending more than we're taking in. You could not do that for very long. You'd be in big trouble. And that's where we are in the federal government. We're spending more. That's why we have the debt, because we're borrowing that money.
Sure.
And now the interest on the debt is huge. And the payment on the interest on the debt, because we have to make the payments, just like if you went to the bank and borrowed, or you put something on your credit card, you have to pay interest on that every month, or you keep going in the hole, and we're going in the hole every month.
Right. Yeah. No, it's again, I think it's easy to it's easy, and I'm saying this as someone who I watch the news, I try to follow the news, but I'm not dealing with this budget issue like you are, for a job, so to speak. But when it's easy for me to not think about it, because it's not in my house, it's not in my wallet, but it is. But it's just that disassociation. But like you said, when you look at it in terms of relate it to your own life, and you're right. You can't. What happens if you don't pay, your car payment? At some point, it crashes down, right? They come get it.
Yeah, they'll come get your car, right?
Yeah. So exactly. Well, we're going to take another break. I definitely want to get into these two workforce
We'll get
things.
Into
Yeah, definitely.
As we get back.
So thanks for listening to us all about home construction. We'll take a break. We'll be right back right after this. Obviously, by listening to this podcast, you see the value of All About Home Construction. Well, by joining our listener-supporter community, you're not just tuning in, you're standing with us as we are able to support and fuel our passions of the construction industry. As a listener-supporter, you'll enjoy exclusive perks, including hearing your name, or maybe even your business name, on our show. So please go to our Spotify website. The link will be in the show notes, and join. You can join for as little as $1 one-time fee, $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever you think you can afford. Every single penny helps to keep this show going as we can continue to grow and do lots more things. Thanks a lot. And again, more importantly, thank you for listening to this. That's right. All About Home Construction here on WATA. And again, thanks for listening to us here at All About Home Construction. You can check out the podcast All About Home Construction wherever you listen to podcasts. You can tell Alexa to play it, or even on YouTube. So we've got different places. So if you want to go back and listen to this interview with Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, by all means, please do. And good morning again, Ms. Foxx. Thank you so much for coming in. And, again, the big topic we want to talk about are, well, two big topics, really, but they both relate to the fact that, like we just mentioned earlier, there's 2 jobs for every one unemployed person out there. And especially in the construction field, especially in the housing field. Any kind of remodeling, any kind of construction, we run into that shortage. And I think, too, the shortage is something, like when I see these numbers and I think about that, like, that doesn't necessarily mean qualified people, right? There's for every 2 jobs, there's one person, but that doesn't even mean that person's qualified. It's just an unemployed person, right? And so getting those skilled laborers in, someone that has a trade or understands a trade or working towards that, I think is a whole nother issue. And I think that's what's really cool about some of these bills that you guys have been working on, and in particular the Pell Workforce Pell Act.
Again, I have thought about this for a long, long time, Terry. You know, I worked at Appalachian for 15 years, and I did academic advising and orientation, and so I got to know almost all the programs there, worked with students for 15 years. Then I went to Maryland Community College and was the president there for 7 years. And I've always known about the efficacy of a short-term program. And Guilford Technical Community College many years ago started doing programs like this, but they did not have funding for it. Pell was begun, I think, in like 1971, somewhere around there, named after Claiborne Pell from Rhode Island. And it was designed for low-income people to get some financial aid grant to go to college. But it was never allowed to be used for short-term programs. Sure. But we always knew that there was a need for that people could improve their skills if they could get a little financial help. But most people can't quit work for 8 weeks to 16 weeks, to even 2 months, people can't do without, because most people are living paycheck to paycheck. And so what we have is called the Bipartisan Workforce Pell Act. I wish we could have come up with a catchy name, but that's the title of it. And we had all but one member of the committee vote for it. So that means all the Democrats, all the Republicans but one, and I believe the one that voted against it was a Republican, because he just doesn't believe the federal government has any business in this. And I do too. At my core, education's not in the Constitution. It is not a responsibility of the federal government. However, we have programs, so let's make them be the best that they can possibly be. So what the Bipartisan Workforce Pell Act will do will be able to fund somebody who wants to get skills-based credentials in a short-term program, so 10 to 16 weeks. And so let's talk about the construction industry. I think you know, even a laborer needs certain skills and certain attitudes about how to work.
Sure.
And so if you can bring somebody in who's never worked in construction but thinks they want to work with their hands, or they're attracted to seeing something accomplished, and maybe long-term wants to build his or her own house, then you can design programs for a person like that. They have to be in an accredited institution. So mostly these are probably going to be done in community colleges, although they could be done in other programs. For example, apprenticeship kind of programs. And I got the Maryland Community College schedule for the spring, and I happened to open it up, and there's Apprenticeship Building America grant available. So we're pushing apprenticeships in North Carolina, and this could be the beginning of an apprenticeship. So what we want to do is provide access to post-secondary education for millions of people who otherwise would be unable to afford it. So if they want to get skills in a high-demand field, then the students can go into a high-quality program. So that's what we want. Short-term program to move into a job quickly. And again, it has to be a good program. There's a quality assurance system for these programs. The education has to be aligned with requirements of in-demand industries, meet employers' hiring requirements, and provide students with relevant skills. So we want that to happen. We also want the program to be aligned with economic value. So the student has to be able to get be earning more as a result of the program than he or she was earning before.
Well, I think it's really interesting. I mean, I'm going to go back a little bit, like you had mentioned, the Pell, the traditional Pell grant that we think of, the going to college, a senior graduates and they fill out the FAFSA, they get figure out how much Pell money they get, and they go off to a 4-year college. And the things that you're describing, right? If we can insert, whatever college degree in that, and in the past that's been the thing, right? We, change the word apprenticeships to internships, right?
Right,
and,
exactly.
And so I think it's, to me personally, like, I love the fact that now we're focusing on that and allowing that side of things, the skill side of things. Like we're giving it back the importance that that this country founded on. I mean, let's face it.
Right.
The skilled workers is what made the country.
Terry, if you hire a college graduate, you have no idea what that person can do. Zero. You don't know. You assume they can read and write. We don't even know that. I mean, there are a lot of college graduates who can't put a good sentence together. I hate to say it, but that's the case. And so what these programs do, I mean, this goes back, goodness, years ago when I was in education, we had to put together, goals, objectives. So there will be objectives for all of these programs, and the students will have to show that they have gained the skills, or the persons putting the program on have to show the students have gained the skills that you want them to gain if the people are going to be funded for it. So we've got really stringent requirements on this. And many people say we should be doing this for all of Pell, and I think eventually we'll move in that direction. We want accountability for the hardworking taxpayer dollars. I keep saying that because, again, I think about my relatives and people I know. I'm out sometimes at 5:30 in the morning on the road, and I see these other people out in their pickup trucks going to work, and I think to myself, these are the people paying the bills.
Sure.
That the federal government racks up, and I'm very empathetic with that. But I want to create more taxpayers. I want to help create more people going out there early in the morning and working, and not just so they pay taxes, but they have a fulfilling life. You have found your cause. You love teaching, and you're doing a great job, and you do this work too. As you said, you love doing both of these things, and I love doing what I do, and I love teaching. So everybody, I hope, would do what he or she loves to do, and they say if you love what you do, you don't ever go to work.
Well, and that's it, right? And it's when you love it, it fuels that passion. You don't want, you want to get better at it, and you do a better job or learn a better way to do some things, and we see that all the time in this, even the construction field, right? New technologies, new things are coming up, and
right.
new products. But we also see that with new ways to do things. I mean, we're not building houses today the way we built them 20 years ago. We're certainly not building them the way we did 100 years ago.
You and Randy talk about that all the time, and I think it's great how you talk about new products all the time and how you use those new products. And you're right. And the other thing we hope will happen with programs like this is that we build lifelong learners. We all have to be lifelong learners, and the way the world is changing so fast, things are changing overnight. All of us have to be lifelong learners, and if we can create really good programs here, which is what education's all about, and which has been a passion of mine, you often see kids who are just wonderful learners and so enthusiastic and so creative, and then sometimes they go to school and all of a sudden that passion is stamped out of them because of the structure of our programs. And what we want is to have programs where the person goes in and is excited about learning and wants to continue to learn. That's Again, that's always been my passion. How do I get people excited about learning and want to be lifelong learners? And we hope programs like this will do it for people. They may be burned out with the traditional system, but they can get into a program like this, hopefully with a teacher who's passionate about it, and they get the students passionate.
Love it, love it. We got to take another break. We'll come right back right after this message. Thanks again, Congresswoman Foxx, for coming in and talking to us. We'll be right back right after these messages. Are you looking for a sawmill dealership that can provide you with the quality equipment you need to get the job done? Look no further than Blue Ridge Sawmills. We offer the full line of Hudson sawmills and sawmilling equipment, from portable sawmills to skidding winches. At Blue Ridge Sawmills, we understand that every project is different, which is why we offer a wide range of sawmilling services. We can help you from everything from finding the right mill for your farm, hobby, or even your business. We also offer a variety of sawmilling supplies such as blades and debarkers, so you can get everything you need in one place. If you're looking for a sawmill dealership that can provide you with the quality equipment and the service you need, then come to Blue Ridge Sawmills. We're here to help you get the job done. Call or visit our Cana, Virginia store at 276-755-3833 or our Asheboro, North Carolina location at 336-964-8304. That's right, all about home construction here on WAETA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there. And missing old Randy today, and I know he's going to listen back on the podcast. If he's listening live, probably, but listening back on the podcast too. And he'll be like, man, see, Randy, this is what happens. I have fun when you're not here. I actually have fun when he's here. I kind of miss him. It feels kind of weird not having Randy across the microphones to look at and make fun of and joke around with. But he's a good guy, and I appreciate him and miss him. So hopefully he'll be back soon enough. But right now we're speaking with Congresswoman Virginia Foxx. And again, thank you so much for coming in and talking about these two bipartisan bills, the Bipartisan Workforce Pell Act, which we mentioned, and the Stronger Workforce for America Act, which I want to get into in just a little bit. And one thing, Ms. Foxx, that I want to point out, too, is, you mentioned earlier on that this is any bill is a process. It's not something you just jump in and, we all have seen the whole, the bill on Capitol Hill cartoon, which is sort of right, but it's there's a lot more to it than just, your committee agreeing to this, and now it's a law, right? You guys are really jumping in. This is like the first phase, I guess, right? Right.
As I said at the beginning, a lot of work was done behind the scenes, like 3 years worth of work, at least 3 years worth of work on this. Where we talk to the staff. The staff is mostly talking to each other. They come to me and say, well, what do you want to do? Since I was the ranking member for 4 years with Bobby Scott, who was the chairman, and then I became the chair. And so our staffs talk to each other and say, all right, this is what we'd like to do. And Bobby and I talked together. We talked together, several months ago and said, all right, here's what we want to do. And the staff was there, so they heard it, and they went forward. And then it always comes down to how to pay for it. As I said, and I'm not being nasty or anything about it, but generally Democrats want to spend more money. Generally we don't. So we have to figure out a way to pay for new programs within the structure that we have, because we have no new spending. The Democrats had that when they were in the majority, but they violated it, but we will not be allowed to violate it. Right. So that's usually where we are. Now we need to reauthorize WIOA. WIOA, when we did it in 2015, it was a decent bill. Made major changes to the workforce issues in the federal government, but it's not worked out as well as we had hoped it would. It just hasn't. And so it's important that we fix it. And things have changed again. It was enacted in 2014 in the same circumstances we have now. We had a Republican House of Representatives, and we had a Democrat Senate, and a Democrat President, President Obama. And President Obama had made a big issue about consolidating workforce programs, so that was helpful to us.
Sure.
So now we've changed the name of the program. We've gone from calling it WIOA to a Stronger Workforce for America Act. We don't have a real acronym for it, so it's going to be a little hard for people to pick up on. So it's the same concept, but for longer-term programs than the Bipartisan Workforce Pell Act. What this does is it makes updates to WIOA, so it's increased the amount of skills development provided under the law. We're strengthening the connections between employers and the workforce system, and we're hoping we put more Americans on the pathway to a successful career. So we're upgrading this. We hope to upgrade the skills in the workforce because we want 50% of this money funded toward directly upskilling workers. What we find now, Terry, is much of the money that's being spent is being spent on bureaucracy.
Right.
And there are programs that never graduate a student from their program.
Sure.
And that's not right. They're just funding high-priced bureaucrats is what I call it.
No, I completely...
And having been at the community college, I saw this happening.
Yeah, well, and that's...
Now we want the employers to be in charge.
I like that. And you know, one thing, too, I want to kind of... What struck me about reading this bill is... Especially after we just talked about the Pell Act, you know, when we think about grants and stuff, we think of students. We think of those young adults going into the, you know, out of high school into the workforce or college, whatever. One thing that stood out to me about this Stronger Workforce for America Act is the word adults. And, you know, and I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's this employer, you know, or employer-led job or program rather, goes right to adults. So it's the listeners we're talking about.
And because the world is changing so much, jobs are being done away with, and we need to help people get the skills they need for the jobs that are out there. It's changing so fast. People are being laid off. They don't have the skills they need, particularly the technical skills, to go into new jobs. And generally, people who have worked for long periods of time, I mean, you're talking about 40, 50, even 60-year-old people who want to continue to work. And thank the Lord for those people. But we want to connect them, workers that are displaced, from no fault of their own. We want them to get good skill development services. And there's a program, I don't like the term individual training accounts because I don't like the word training. You know, you train a dog and you educate people, but that language is embedded in people's minds. But we want them to be able to go out and design a program for themselves. Again, this is all going to be done through recognized programs where they're accredited and we know they're going to be good. We don't want fly-by-night people setting up programs and saying, hey, come over here like a carnival barker.
Money, right.
And spend a semester or a year with me and I'll help you get the skills. We want to know that there are pathways for these people. So they gain the skills and they continue their education. But we want the employers to be designing the programs so they will hire the people that go through these programs and they'll say these are the specific skills that we need. And by the way, Terry, in the last segment it sounded like, you know, we had solved the problem, but these bills have passed our committee only.
Right.
That's one hurdle.
Sure.
Now they have to go to the floor of the House. They have to pass there. Then they go to the Senate and likely will go to a committee, have to pass that committee. then pass the Senate. The Senate will make changes. Then we'll have to have a conference where we agree or disagree on the changes that the Senate makes, and then bring it back to each chamber to be voted on, and then send it to the president. Now, I'm optimistic about this, something getting signed into law. It won't be the bill we are going to pass out of the House. It'll be something different because of the Senate's involvement. But the president has not threatened to veto these bills, which tells me that we have a good chance of getting them passed and signed into law.
Well, again, it goes back to that bipartisanship, right? You guys, it's not an issue that that just one side of the one political party has realized. I mean, this is something that affects everyone, regardless of where you vote and how you vote. You know, and again, I think one thing that I wanted to point out too is you had mentioned the training. When we kind of localize that, we bring it back to here to the high country specifically, but the North Carolina and whole, we've got these programs. At least the basis of these programs. I kind of think back of here in North Carolina, back in the late 90s when we had the shift from the textiles, factories. I mean, North Carolina was a huge textile factory. I mean, that was what funded a lot of North Carolina. Of course, tobacco the same way. And when we moved away from that, I mean, I remember people going back to school, going back to these community colleges for work training, or work skills. And I think it's kind of interesting to me. What I notice is that we're kind of going back to that. We moved away from that, especially after the housing crunch in 2008. But it's almost like we're the pendulum swinging back into that.
Yeah, well, we go through cycles. The economy is booming, and it was booming up until COVID hit. At the time, there were lots and lots of jobs out there, and we were pushing apprenticeships and other kinds of programs under the Trump administration, doing a lot of good. And then COVID hit, people lost their jobs or were laid off for a while, and many people did during that period of time while they were home use the internet to gain skills. It wasn't like everybody was sitting around doing nothing. A lot of people were continuing their educations while they were not at their job, but not enough was organized for people to be able to do this. But industry is recognizing credentials, short-term credentials. I mean, you can go online and take short-term programs that will give you a certain certification, particularly as you work on computers. But not everybody can be at home and work on a computer for their job. There are other things that need to be done. And I was talking to people this week in the assisted living care industry.
Right.
And they were saying they can't stay in business unless they have helpers in the assisted living care. Right. And so they were saying, and it's not a dead-end job but they need people with certain skills. You need I think mostly have a CNA, certified nurse assistant. And people can go into one of those programs, go in and work in an assisted living facility, be a patient caregiver. But if they like management, they could go on and continue their program and be able to move up the ladder, so to speak, and stay within the industry. There are lots of things they can do, or they can go on and get their RN. They can work in dietary. There are lots of things they can do. But that is a growing industry because guess what? Our population is aging. I know they're saying, that we've got a problem. We do have a problem with drug use in our country, and that we have a lot of people in the 40s and 50s who are dying because of drug overdoses, but still, we're aging. Right now, the average age is 78 to 80, right. And so we're going to need a lot of people in the industries helping in the healthcare industry. Lots of jobs in that area.
Well, I think you made a good point. We're talking about construction because this is all about home construction. Right. But you're right. This is something that affects everything from nursing. I would imagine auto mechanics. I mean, there's so many fields that skilled workers are in. But we need to take another break. We'll come right back right after this. Thanks for listening to us.
Hi, I'm Randy Blake of Randy Blake Carpentry INC.
And I'm Terry Cannell Beck. Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock, we have the privilege to bring the most recent news and advice about construction topics you like to hear.
We'd like to keep you informed about a variety of topics that help us here in the high country due to our constant weather changes.
This is possible because of listeners like you and our sponsors.
So please listen to AM 1450 WATA or 96.5 FM every Saturday morning.
Your house, well, thank you.
That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. And again, thanks for all of our listeners out there. And I'm speaking with Congresswoman Virginia Foxx about two bills, nonpartisan bills or bipartisan bills that came through, the Bipartisan Workforce Pell Act, the Stronger Workforce for America Act, both of those leaving the committee, I guess you would say, going in and moving on up to the next step and next phase of being voted in, hopefully, in some time. So again, thank you for coming in and talking to us about these things. And, just a quick recap here. The Bipartisan Workforce Pell Act, helping students participate in short-term programs to move into a job relatively quick when they finish out. And I love the fact that you have the quality assurance built in, kind of that checks and balances as well, and make sure that everything. I like the fact that it meets employers' hiring requirements. I mean, I'm reading that language several times, and it's not just throwing a bunch of darts and seeing which one hits the board. It's targeting directly what we need. What workers need, what employers need. And then, of course, the Stronger Workforce for America Act, then that to me is the big word that stood out to me, Ms. Foxx, is that adults, that word adults, and because I think so much when we talk about these programs, we automatically think of the younger students, the young adults going into their adulthood, but this Stronger Workforce for America Act really deals with people who are already adults and who are already, looking to gain and get better. I mean, there's, like you said, lifelong learners. There's no reason to not continue.
Right. We generally think about people who are 18 years old, graduating from high school, continuing their education. But you're right, Terry. That's only 25% of the people gaining skills in education these days, and living full-time on a campus somewhere. So most people are not graduating from high school, going to college, and living on campus. The most people who are getting further education are adults or are people doing it part-time or living at home and going to school. So our workforce is very diversified in terms of what it's doing now, more so than ever in the history of our country. And also the way of gaining skills has changed a great deal, which is good. We need lots of ways to do it.
Sure.
So I'm very pleased that we've been able to pass these two bills out of the committee, but they have a long way to go. As I mentioned before, it takes a long time to bring a bill to a committee to get it ready to go. It's not easy work, but it's rewarding work. We all feel very good about this. These two bills. The committee, people on the committee are very positive about it. Now we have to bring those bills to the floor. We would love to bring them under suspension, meaning that it goes pretty quickly.
Right.
And sometime in January, I hope we'll be able to do that. Then they would go to the Senate, go through the same process, committee, then Senate. I'm optimistic about these bills passing because we reauthorized the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act in the same situation.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm going to cut you off. We only got about a minute left here.
Right.
And I want to point out that you have the office here in Boone, and people can always get in touch with you. And I think that's the thing is, getting in touch with those elected officials and letting them both, everyone know that it's kind of a big deal.
Right. I think it's important that people will notify our two senators. I think they'll both be very supportive of these bills. But if you have people listening who are from out of state and they're interested in knowing more about this, they can go to my website or they can go to edworkforce.house.gov and look at what these bills are all about, or contact me and let me know that they're in favor of them, whatever. But we're there to help. Our office is there. If you've got a passport issue, a problem with the post office, anything to do with the federal government, we're there. So we do legislation in D.C. We do casework that is helping individuals here in North Carolina.
Love it. Well, thank you again for coming on. We could always speak. We could probably go another 2 more hours, but unfortunately, we're out of time. Thanks for listening to us all about home construction.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you for listening to All About Home Construction on the podcast. We record this live every Saturday on AM 1450 and FM 96.5 WATA in Boone, North Carolina. You can become a supporter by supporting us with a small monthly donation. That'll help sustain future episodes. You can do that for as little as 99 cents a month, and that'll go a long way to help our show. Do that, you get your name or your company name included in our advertisements. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.